A faint glimmer of light. From the Scottish Bothy Bible by Geoff Allan. A whiff of smoke on the chilly air is often the first sign. Then a glimmer of light floats in the darkness ahead. After walking another 100 yards through the crisp snow, the beam of my head torch picks out a chimney, stone walls, and a single glowing window, thick with condensation. My journey's end. Approaching the wooden door, which I know will not be locked, is exciting and slightly scary. Who will I meet in this little cottage, far from anywhere? Will I be welcome? Will I find a warm reception, a spot by the fire, a space to roll out my sleeping mat and bed down for the night? A couple of hours later, my belly is full and my hands cradle a mug of steaming tea. Leaning back in a rickety old chair, I soak up the atmosphere of this cosy little space. The homely scent of coal smoke and food cooked over camping gas mixes with the soft, earthy smell of the building itself. Boots clump on wooden boards, and sleeping bags, socks and mitts hang on a line. My new friends pass me a bottle of whiskey, while around the room candles burn gently in the necks of already emptied bottles, each a testament to a past night just like this one. Strangers, who would be unlikely to exchange even the merest greeting on a city street, share talk of politics, tales of mountain epics, and wax lyrical about the wild places of this land. Food that has been carried many a country mile is shared around. Later on, perhaps, a guitar comes out, or maybe a muthi, a mouth organ, and the evening passes in a warm fug of song, laughter and chat, until the flames fade in the grate and only the red embers glow. Set in a wonderfully diverse landscape, the Bothys of Scotland are something quite unique and a resource to be cherished and shared. Visited by a similarly unique and diverse range of characters, they are sure to offer the traveller an experience that is both stimulating and memorable. In the wilderness areas of Scotland, an eclectic collection of basic accommodation has grown into what is now a well-established network of mountain huts known as Bothys. The term comes from the Gaelic word bothan, via the Old Irish both, meaning hut, and originally described a rudimentary accommodation provided by landowners for bachelor farm labourers or estate workers who tended crops or livestock. In recent times, a bothy has come to mean a shelter that is freely available to anyone to stay the night or use as a lunch stop. The vast majority of bothys are single-storey crofts, farmsteads or estate houses that were abandoned, then saved from ruin and renovated. They vary in size from Isandoka, affectionately known as the tea house, which is little bigger than a garden shed, to a bothy like Craig, a former youth hostel, which has 2 reception rooms and 3 upstairs bedrooms. The network was formalized by the Mountain Bothy Association, which now maintains 81 properties, with the agreement and support of the landowners and the estates which own them. As well as their historical associations, Bothys differ from other systems of mountain huts and refuges around the world, in that very few are purpose-built, and the location of the majority are not the result of strategic planning, so they may not necessarily lie close to a particular peak or along a recognized long-distance trail. Neither are Bothys attached to particular national parks. They are randomly scattered across Scotland, some in very remote places that are rarely visited. And except in a very few cases, the word Bothy is not found on any maps. Only the names can be recognized. In the landscape, there are few physical clues to their whereabouts. On the well-trodden West Highland Way, for example, Rao Choice Bothy, which is just 2 miles from a popular beauty spot, is not signposted at all. This reticence to advertise locations is particularly marked at some visitor centres, where the Bothys in the area are not included on notice boards displaying walks and bike trails. Another distinctive aspect of the culture which sets Bothys apart is the concept of bothing, an eccentric ethos that revolves around going to a Bothy purely for its own sake, without any other objective in mind. Some regulars adopting a particular both as a home from home. This means that there is a much wider cross-section of the population out and about than would ordinarily be expected in a wilderness environment. A desire to protect the shelters from overuse explains the aura of secrecy that has always surrounded them, even though this runs counter to the ethos of open to all. In 2009, however, the Mountain Bothy Association placed the locations of all the Bothys maintained by it online. Prior to this, the information was officially only available to members. There are many more non-MBA estate Bothys in the Highlands, whose whereabouts are closely guarded, with details passed on only by word or mouth, or hinted at in online forums or Bothy book entries. Of these, a number of the better-known non-MBA Bothys are listed in the Scottish Bothy Bible. Many of the properties now used as open shelters were originally built to house shepherds and gillies in the decades after the forced evictions known as the Highland Clearances, events that occurred in the aftermath of a failed Scottish uprising in 1745 against the ruling Protestant government of George II. The rebellion of clan chiefs was led by the Catholic Charles Edward Stuart, better known as Bonnie Prince Charlie. In the years following the Jacobite defeat, their power and wealth broken, many clans sold their land to new absentee landlords who turned to large-scale sheep farming and later deer stalking. Descendants of clan chiefs also became English-speaking landlords and put profit before community. As a result, many crofters were driven from the land they had occupied for generations, but to which they held no written title. Many families emigrated to new worlds such as Canada, America, and Australia, embracing the opportunity to start life anew, though others were forcibly shipped out of the country. The remaining crofters were often coerced onto marginal land, and by the time that a right of tenancy was enshrined in law in 1886, the extent of depopulation had already left its mark. Life in the highlands in the 18th century, before the clearances, was however uncertain. Many communities were little more than one failed harvest away from starvation, and malnutrition left people prone to illnesses and disease. By the early 19th century, with better infrastructure allowing the export of surplus commodities and agricultural innovations that led to increased crop yields, particularly of potatoes, the population had recovered. However, the price of dependency on the potato was the decimation of crops by blight between 1846 and 1856, although the impact was not felt as harshly as was the case in Ireland. In the late 19th century, many left for work in the factories of Glasgow, and subsequently the tragic loss of life during 2 world wars sounded the death knell for many rural communities. Farms and cottages were abandoned and left as ghosts in the landscape all across the Highlands. In 1965, a chance remark in a Bothy book at Backhill of Bush sparked the imagination of Bernard Heath, a cyclist from Huddersfield. Realizing that some kind of effort was needed to make these refuges habitable, Heath and a few of his hill-walking and cycling friends decided to turn the ruins of Tunskeen Farm, Galloway, into a basic shelter. At the end of that same year, he and a number of like-minded individuals gathered in a nearby village hall, and the Mountain Bothies Association was born.